Hello and welcome to Think About It podcast, where we would like to ask you to think about it. This week's episode will be about religious preaching and what concerns it, like when does it turn from good to bad, basically. And I'll tell you a little story that just happened to me a while ago. So, let us begin the Think About It podcast. I'm your one and only host, Jorge, and let's start this shindig. So, a few seconds ago, not seconds, hours, I would say, I posted my friend shared a video, the God Epiphany, which is by Dark Matter 482, I believe. And so the video entails basically why people feel so personal about God. I will link this in the description. And the reason he gave was basically that we are God, essentially. Like, God is our ego as humans, right? And that's why it's able to answer our questions and why it seemingly answers our prayers, is because we need to follow our ego's path, what it wants, and once we follow the ego's path and get what we want, we believe we appraise it to a higher power. And so I posted that, and then I'm also an avid follower of the Thinking Atheist, which basically he's an atheist who produces videos against God and like for atheists. A video series of his is called In Your Own Words, which is basically a series where he asks his viewers to send in videos of their atheist stories, their lives and such. And then he put it together in a montage of sorts. And so I just watched the newest one, which is a Nigerian send in a video basically telling like of the genocide, like how hard it may be to be an atheist in Nigeria, right, where there's genocides, killing the opposing religion, and he says religion is the number one evil. So I shared these on my Facebook, and what I basically essentially said was hating on religion. Of course, I tend to do that a lot, but not in front of my friends because they're Christians on Facebook. I just don't want to make any of them mad. But when I'm having a close, intimate conversation, I felt it was time to finally share my feelings on this. And so what I wrote on the video on my Facebook post: when you have to be afraid of who you are because you fear being religiously persecuted, there is a problem. The problem being religion. The world over, radicals kill and abuse atheists and those that don't believe in their God. Why is it considered ethical for them to preach and speak out, but not for an atheist? As you can imagine, nobody responded to my call for an answer, I guess you could say, because they don't know. They're all radicals, of course, but they don't want to believe they are. And so that leads me to what the whole podcast is going to be about: religious preaching. Soon after I posted that, my friend was like, "Stop raping my newsfeed." And I was like, "Shut the fuck up. You're stupid, first of all. 2 videos. And I have to go through I don't want to overstate this because I don't see that much Christian propaganda. It's just like 1 or 2 people, right? But it happens. Like, then the Lord gave His only begotten Son. Like, that's their only all they ever do is post Bible quotes. And I'm like, really? It doesn't annoy me, and that's the thing. It doesn't. They can have their own belief. I'm a open thinker. I believe people should have their own, beliefs, whatever it may be. But then when I get things like that, where it's like I post my beliefs and suddenly I'm persecuted, telling me to stop. No, I'm sorry. That is not for you to decide. They can religiously preach, and you'll be like, oh, I like the status. But then when the opposing opinion makes a point that you don't like, you'll suddenly turn against and hate. So I guess this week's episode. Has it been like 2 weeks? Anyways, what I'm trying to say is when is religious preaching okay? I feel it should never be. You should never be allowed to preach personally. But then again, that's against freedom of speech here in America. So I accept it. But then if you have the freedom of speech and you don't mind anybody saying anything about your religion, then you shouldn't mind anybody else saying anything about theirs. It's not an optional thing. It's both. It's either you get to say it and so do they. It's not a one-way street is what I'm trying to say. But then, like, this just annoys me because there's people who are probably worse than me who just, I know there are, that just ignore their atheists. Like, they break relationships with atheist friends. And why does it have to be atheist? God damn, this is going against my lisp. God, whoever put the S in lisp as an ass. And so when does it turn from just, like, I wasn't really preaching, I was just stating, like, a point, like, living in Nigeria and then trying to be an atheist, it just should be impossibly scary, genocides and all that. But then when you go out and biblically quote something that endorses rape and incest, and if you need those passages, just ask. I have them as shorthand. I just read the Bible. Yeah, Genesis, very first book, rape and incest. Woo! Favorite part of it. And okay, well, I guess that's all I have to say for this episode, this week's episode of Think About It podcast. Not a very long podcast, but it doesn't have to be, because I just want to ask you to think about it. What do you think? When does it, should everybody be allowed to preach, or nobody? Like just in the confines of your private, or should it be like, like it shouldn't be a one-way street, is what I think. Like you can't like go preaching, and the Lord gave His only begotten Son, and so for us to die for our sins, or and then the Lord said, "Let there be light," and there was light, and He saw that the light was good. Like, when does it become when does it go from just stating your opinion to preaching, and when should it no longer be allowed? That's my question for you this week, and I hope maybe somebody will answer it. And if not, well, thank you and if you listen this far, thank you for listening to Think About It podcast. And I'm gonna start my sign off right now. The Think About It podcast is brought to you by the one and only Jorge, who hopes to produce more wonderful content for you to think about. So once again, thank you for listening to Think About It podcast, where we like to ask you to think about it. And please consider leaving us a like and rating or comment answering our question of the week, which is, when does opinion turn into preaching?